Well, hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Johnny and you're watching Hillbilly Shipwright. This is going to be part 7 of our Lowell Grand Banks Dory by Model Shipways here. And let's see, where did we leave off? Oh, the rails. We're going to do our cap rails. And those are the wooden rails that runs off on the top of our sheer strake, the upper plank here on our dory. So we've got those to do. Then we also have the beckets, which we drilled the holes a little bit larger for, and that's the ropes that are used for it enables you to stack these dories one on top of another. So we got those beckets to do, and then we got the tholes or thole pins to do, and those are these little bitty pins that goes up on our cap rail that we stick our oars in between. So yeah, we got a lot to do. So let's jump down to the bench and get started on it. Okay, first order of business is our cap rail. Now these are the rails that cover the gunnel and the sheer plank, as well as provide support for the tholes, which are the pins that the oars work in. All right, so they're delicate parts, handle them with care, blah, blah, blah. Just kidding. Anyway, traditionally they are painted green, which is going to be one of the first things that we do. Well, that's not green. Here we go. This is Model's Expo MS4801 Bulwarks Dark Green. So hopefully this paint in this color will go down, as well as the hull yellow ochre did, because that really worked well. Anyway, they just give you a few precautions and stuff telling you what to do. So you want to paint the rails first and let them completely dry. Probably take 2 to 3 coats. But before we paint them, we're going to need to fit them, or partially fit them. And then we'll paint them. There will be touch-ups required. Then we'll move on to 19A, which is attaching the cap rail. All right. No big surprise. Here we got our fret with our cap rail in it there. And we do need to separate that from the fret. They do suggest you cutting it loose from the back side, but I'm going to be a rebel here because it's easier for you guys to see the line from the front side. It's okay to cut a little oversize, I should say, to the outside, because we're going to sand all this off very carefully. All right. We should be free. Are we free? Yeah, we're free. Just like so. So the next thing to do, we have this char, of course, which has to be dealt with. Well, it doesn't really have to be dealt with, to be honest with you. I'm going to go ahead and take the char off. Because in my mind, seems to me that the paint will take, I want the paint to take evenly. Not that it's going to really matter that much on this edge. I will just lightly sand it. But we're going to remove those connection points there where it came out of the fret. And I am just using those emery boards to do the bulk of our sanding here. We don't want any trace of that left, because that will be an ugly spot. I don't want any ugly spots. I'm going to have to do that on the inside too. So I'm going to go ahead and get this cleaned up and get it ready for paint. Oh, I'll also mention that I will lightly sand it with some 220 on whatever side we decide is the top side. I guess this side. Yeah, just to remove any little fuzzies. Okay, so with our cap rails all sanded, I need to take a look here at how it's going to go together. And it's going to line up with the inner edge here of our gunnel. As you can see, it kind of fights you a little bit, but yeah. Maybe overhang just a little bit. So I need to modify it because they're both going to have to meet. As you can see right there, they're not going to meet. So we're just going to take a file and we're going to modify it. Need to make that much deeper in order to get them to come together. That'll minimize the amount of filling that they expect us to do, because in the instructions they do show us, show you here, that they expect us to use filler. So I am going to fit these to minimize that. I'm just going to probably end up with just a little bitty spur on the end here by the time I'm done with it. We're already about twice the distance there. And that is looking much better. Yeah. So I'm going to do the same thing to the opposite side. And work them until I get them to close up. And then we'll take a look at it. Okay, so I think I'm just going to leave just a little bitty gap there in case I need to do some shifting when I go to put these on, because we're still gonna, oops, almost lost it there. Still gonna have to do a little bit of filler anyway and some touch-ups, so that'll be fine. Yeah, we can make that work. As you can see, we've got that little bitty thin edge there that protrudes out. We've got our support bands there on top of our shear strake that are supposed to be visible. And they're going to be visible all the way down eventually when we get everything glued up. So next up, we need to paint those. Let's see, I need something to lay these on after I paint them, so that they can dry. So I'll put this up there. Talking to myself again. We need to mix our paint up. As you can see, it does need to be mixed. Such a pretty dark green. So when we paint these, the tops and the edges need to be painted. However, we're not supposed to be painting the bottoms of them. Number one, it's not going to be seen, and number two, it will give the best opportunity for our wood glue to grab hold of these rails and hold them in place. So yeah, that's the strategy. So that's what we're going to do. Somebody else thought this up, it wasn't me. I just read the instructions. Well, a lot of times I ignore them, but yeah, I still read them. All right, that should work. All right, we'll just do these one at a time. Now, these do extend well past the stern, so you can leave yourself a little finger hold for it there, I guess. Don't want too much paint there. So we are going to do the edges here. And I'm trying not to get too much paint over the edge there. Going to take some coats here, as you can tell. At least 2, if not 3. You just want to make sure it's a good even coat. It's always kind of hard to paint something that flops around. So, there we go. I don't think I got too much paint on the bottom. All right, so I'm going to keep painting these until I get them painted. Probably have to do a sanding in between coats and yeah. See how many coats it takes. All right. Okay, so while we're painting our rails, we are also, now this is just me doing my thing. So, these frame irons that we put on, that are little bitty pieces of card stock that we cut out. I'm going to paint those the same color as our cap, I think. I think that'll look good. At least I hope it looks good. And again, this paint is so nice. So on the rails, I'm on my final coat. I had to put 3 coats on those rail caps in order to get that deep, deep green look there. And however, this already having some paint on it, I think this one coat is going to work on these. Yeah. I think I like that. All right, so I'm going to paint the rest of these up. Okay, so we've got our cap rails all painted up here. I really like that green. Very nice. Now, we didn't paint the bottom of them because that's not going to be seen. And we need something for the glue to actually adhere to, so it's easier for it to adhere to the raw wood. So we're going to let those dry. Now, while they're drying, oops. Let's see where we're at. Attaching the rails, trimming them. We've already assembled our base. Well, hadn't really assembled the base yet. Still got to stain that. I'll do that off camera. Can't put our beckets on yet. We've already done our throats and got those more or less finished. We'll need to paint those, I think. Probably put a clear coat on them. Let's see. We've already done our oars, except for the leathering option. Now we'll probably do that, but what I want to get to right now is the thole pins, because that may take a little bit of time. And these are the thole pins. And what they provide us with is this right here. So they're supposed to be round. So we've got to sand this down and make round pins out of it. So we're going to move our rail caps out of the way here and let those continue to dry. And we need to work on this. And you do that by sanding the corners off. Very similar to how we did our oars. So I'm doing the corners front and back at the same time. Or the edge presented to us and the one away from us. I'm just drawing the sandpaper over top of it. Just pinching it in there. Kind of get a an octagon shape going. Or not an octagon, but a hex. No, it's octagon. 4 and 4. 4 corners sanded down and 4 sides. So yeah, I was right the first time. Well, just take that corner off. Like so. Try to keep it as uniform as possible there. And once I get that corner off, we'll rotate it around and get the next corner. This actually seems to have a little twist in it, but that's okay. I'm only doing sections at a time here. So what we want to end up with is a round pin. Now if I had some wooden round pins, which I don't, I wouldn't have to do this. I would just cut me some lengths and go with it there, but this is what they provide us in the kit, and this is what we're going to use. So eventually we'll get it down into something that resembles a round pin. All right, so I'm going to keep working on this until I make us some thole pins. So I've gotten it knocked down pretty good. Most of the corners, are gone. So now, just give it a little twirl here. Kind of get it the rest of the way. I'll straighten up the sanding on it there in a final pass. Just try to knock off all those edges. Very lightly. I don't want to sand it too small, so I will have to check and see where we're at. The ends are the hardest to do. Yeah, it's coming out. It's getting rounder. All right, so I'm going to finish this up, and then we'll see what we have to do to cut them to length. So there we are. It's about as round as it's going to get, so if I keep sanding, it's going to totally disappear. Yeah, it'll work for us. Not real happy with it, but you know, it'll be fine. So the next thing we need to do is we need to cut this. And since I'm right-handed, I'm going to hang on my tape this way. We need to cut it in 1/4-inch strips. What I'm looking to do is mark us out a 1/4 inch here. Just like that. I need to cut the end off first. All right, so we're supposed to be able to roll this. Maybe we can. If it's just sliding with me. That's because it's not round. So anyway, there we go. It's so small, I think we just chop it off. I think. Yeah. So we need, let's see, we got 4 positions, 2 per side, so we need 16. So I'm just going to cut all these up. So that's enough for one side right there. No, wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See, I can't even count. Will that roll? No, I don't want to roll. There we go. 8. Okay, so that's one side. So I got to do another side. So there we go. We have a little bit left over for mistakes, and I'm sure I'm gonna make some. So we got 16 of our thole pins made. So, yeah. Now I think the best thing to do is to glue these into place, and then we'll worry about fine-tuning the heights of them. So, yeah. So we have to wait until we get our cap rail all glued into place before we can put these in. So we will make sure that we set these aside where we can't lose them. There we go. Okay, so our rail caps here, our cap rails, are nice and dry, ready to go. And now we have to affix these to our dory. Now I did go in and just let me see here, kind of scratch the paint and lightly sand it through here. Not going to get all of it off, but I don't want to sand all the way to the edge because the bands are going to still be visible. So got to be very careful to do that. I'm not getting everything off, but I think just scuffing it should be plenty to let our yellow glue kind of get a little bit of a grip to it. Now our instructions tell us that we should do this in 1 to 2 inch lengths at a time and allow that to dry completely before continuing. And the reason why is because, as you can see, we're gonna have to kind of bend this cap rail around and fit it a little bit at a time. So you don't want the upper portion of it shifting on you while you're trying to get it fitted around. So we're gonna have to let it dry. That's gonna be fun. It's gonna take a while to do one rail. So we're just gonna do one rail. I'll do the other one off camera. So what I'm looking at is where my turn is, and it looks like we can come right up here. This will be our first index of where we're going to glue it, and then we'll start our next gluing session for the next section of rail, and then work our way around. So this is pretty fast gluing, or fast drying glue. Get the top off here. Just gonna need a little bit here to start off with. A little dab will do us, I guess. Now I'm going to apply the glue to the actual boat. And there will be squeeze out, and we will have to clean that up. Squeeze out is good as long as you clean it up. Bad if you leave it, because then you gotta re-soften it. And I am not under any illusions that there won't be some touch-ups to do with paint. Just something that you have to kind of deal with, so. Kind of how we're going to have to go with it. Now this stuff does skin over, the glue that is, skins over kind of quick, so you need to kind of move with some purpose here. Yeah, yeah, this is me moving with purpose. All right, so let's try to not make a mess. I could probably use just a little bit of glue right up here. There we go. And I'm going to tilt it towards me so I can see where I'm going. kind of hold it there. It's a little annoying how it kind of... So I want an even edge all the way out there. So it's supposed to be flush with the inside. So that's what we're going for here. There's no real way to clamp this. Just going to have to hold it. It looks good. Get this squeeze out cleaned up on the inside here first. That's the hardest to reach. All right. Obviously, you can't do but one rail at a time here. See how our glue just kind of rolls up. We go to scrape it. That's because it skins over rather quickly. No real way to clamp this. I wish there was. So we're fairly consistent there with our relief right here, right on the edge. So we're going to carry that theme on down for each section that we glue up. So I'm just going to press on. I want to hold it here for a couple of minutes here to get it to tack up. And then we'll set it aside and let that dry. And while it's drying, we can go ahead and work on something else. And the something else that we can do while our cap rail is drying is leathering. Now this is optional. It's for your oars. Some oars had wire strips of leather nailed around them where they worked against the tholes. You can imitate this using a 1/8 to a 1/4 inch wide strip of brown wrapping paper wrapped around the oar and glued on as indicated on the plan in page 4. So I did make a copy of page 4 earlier in the build, and what they're talking about here, if you can see it, it's very faint. That is this piece right here. There we go, I colored it in. So now our oars are actually longer, as you can see here. Whoops, I just put a mark on there. But it's actually longer than what's on the plan. So I'm using the plan here just to start the mark for putting our leather wraps on. Line it up. We would like all of these to be in the same place on each of the oars. That would be preferable. So the band's going to go below that. And with my marking and my crooked eye, there's no telling what we're liable to end up with. Now, for the band, we're going to be using brown paper. Now this is, just in case you was wondering what to do with all that packing paper that comes in all those Amazon boxes that shows up at your door. Well, just so happens it is quite thin. So I think it's going to work well for that. So what I have done is I have cut out a 4mm wide strip of brown packing paper here. And let's see, in order to help us with our wrapping, just use the oar here, I think. Yeah. We can just pull the paper across an edge, and that'll help curl it up for us there, so that we're not fighting a straight piece of brown paper when we're trying to get it onto a round surface there. So hopefully that works for us. So next, I'm going to be using PVA glue, good old Elmer's, and a brush, wherever it's at. There we go. A brush and a Q-tip to kind of help us with this process. So, oh yeah, and probably a pair of scissors too. Now imagine, like everything that gets wet, it kind of gets bigger. And then as it dries, it gets smaller. So we're gonna have to cut our brown paper here just a little bit long when we do our little overlap on one side. And then when we put these in the boat, we can always put the seam down so it's not visible. So that's not a great big deal, but I don't want a gap between the ends when they meet on our oar there. So I guess time to get started. So we need to actually soak this a little bit, or a whole lot. So the trick is going to be keeping this from sliding around. And getting it to line up when we get all the way around our oar. Give it a second there to grab on, maybe press it. Maybe press it down a little bit there. It's going to be a little bit more tedious than I had expected, but I'll get it wrapped. Maybe my approach here is a bit flawed. There we go, we're on. Sort of. You're probably asking yourself, why don't I use CA glue or something like that? And I will say the reason why I'm not using CA glue is because I don't want this to come out spotted, because I intend to give it a clear satin coat. And my thinking, which might not be correct, is that if I use CA glue, we're liable to end up with we might end up with spots that we really don't want to have. In our finished product. Just want to make sure that end gets down. So once we get these on, and let them dry, they should shrink up and be well fitted to our oar. Just really concerned about that edge. I want to make sure that that edge lays down right there. Okay. Well, that wasn't so bad. So we're going to let this dry, and I'll keep my eye on it to make sure it doesn't come loose. We can always reactivate it and get it to lay down again, I hope. All right, so that's one done. And we'll go ahead and leather wrap the other 3 oars there. Okay, so with our oars drying, we're going to go back to our dory here. I did put a rubber band on to kind of hold that into place. And it seems to be glued. All right, so the trick here is going to be getting our glue up underneath the rail there to get our next section. So we need to determine where that next section is going to go, how much of it we can bend into place, and I think we can make it down to the number 2 frame without too much trouble there. Is a little bit tedious here. Yeah. I think going down to the number 2 frame is probably our best bet. So, let me get me some glue here. And something to apply it with. And so I've got to get this up close. I really want to put it on from this side. Put my thumb up underneath the rail there. Yeah, I'm making a mess of it here. There we go, that worked better. Let me take some of this off right here. All right, that'll have to work. Lost my paper towel. I'm going to go down to the number 2 frame. I'm going to have a lot of squeeze out here. That's all right. We can clean that up. That just lets us know that there is plenty of glue holding our cap rail on. I don't even know if you guys can see what I'm doing. I hope that you can. That's pretty good. So now I'm going to get this positioned. Get it pressed down into place there. It wants to walk out from the edge. Didn't think this was going to be easy. So we're going to hold it there just for a minute. Let it tack up. Still trying to maintain the same relief there. Now, I have no illusions that it's not going to be absolutely perfect, but it ought to be pretty close. So it's still moving around on me a little bit. Let's see. There we go. I want to get this squeeze out on the outside here, definitely, while I can. Seems to come off the paint rather readily, which is why I did that little bit of sanding there. Not so much squeeze out on the inside. All right, so I'm going to hold this until it tacks up, and then I'll stick that rubber band back on it. Okay, so while we're letting that next section of cap rail dry, we're going to prepare our throats here that we've already done in the last video for giving them a clear coat, a satin clear coat, which includes attaching them to something where we don't have to handle them. And it's going to give us plenty of room here to maneuver our brush around and get a nice coat of that satin clear coat on. And I think this painter's tape here, just the common blue type painter's tape, is what I'm using, and a large craft stick. I'll get it off my finger. I'm going to need another piece, I think. That might be enough. It just needs to hold it securely long enough for us to get some paint on it, and we're not going to be abusing it while we're painting it. Make sure we got the correct side up. Now the tape should hold it up away from our craft stick enough to be able to get the edges without having to worry about the paint actually gluing it down to our craft stick. Oops, there we go. Just like so. Make sure everything is not going to fall off on us, so we're in good shape there. So I did go ahead and stain our base and stand with the classic gray Minwax semi-transparent stain. Now this is a oil-based stain, just to let you know. So you need to give it plenty of time to actually dry. And it gives us a real nice look. I do like that. I just didn't want the base to detract from the model, so I chose that gray. It's kind of a neutral thing, and maybe a little bit like water. So a grayish water, but yeah. So we're going to be doing the satin, clear satin from Model Expo. That's the MS4972. And we're going to do that on our base. And we are also going to do it on our throats, which we prepared for painting. And I've also prepared our oars with our little leather bands here. They're already dry, so we're ready to go ahead, and we're going to give these a clear coat as well. And I got my little clamp stand made there so that there won't be any problem with it drying. Then we'll just come back and touch up the handles later after everything is dry. So there's no need for you guys to watch me brush on clear. So I'm just going to go ahead and get all this taken care of, and we can move back to our cap rail and continue with it. Now, let me see. Just want to show you my little clamping jig. So my rubber bands aren't quite small enough. So I am using this block of wood here right on the bottom of the dory to help give us a little bit of down pressure there. And we're just going to keep moving along the edge there Probably got like one more glue up here, one more small section before we have to actually come in and trim the stern end of our cap rail to actually fit, and then we'll be able to glue the rest of it. So yeah, and it is a slow process, so I'll have to do this and then we're going to work on the rest of it there. But in the meantime, while this is setting up here, we can take a look at some of our clear parts here. So this is clear coated, and as you can probably tell, I hope the camera picks it up, where the grain has been raised. That's because when you sand things, of course, you compress the grain, and when we put the clear coat on, it allows that grain to expand. And when it does, it raises the grain. So I've got like 2 coats on this already, and so now we need to kind of smooth that out. Now you can either use some really fine sandpaper or some steel wool, which is what I want to try here. Now I've used this before with furniture. The only problem with using steel wool, other than the fact that it doesn't want to tear, well, there we go. And you can probably tell, you get all these little fibers. That's just from tearing it, so kind of important to keep this cleaned up. We don't want that getting into our paint. That would be a problem there. So let me clean this up real quick. Of course, as we use this, and it's just a gentle rub, kind of smooth everything out. And the great part about steel wool is that it's going to conform to whatever shape that we're rubbing down. So we don't have to worry about flat spots, or, I mean, if you're aggressive enough, you can rub completely through the finish, but you're less likely to do that than you are with, say, sandpaper. And of course, we don't want to. There we go. That's looking much better. So I'm going to get everything rubbed down, and then I'll continue on with the rail. Oh, and I almost forgot to tell you, this is grade 3/0. So grade number 000. You can get 4/0, which is the finest. But for most things, this is going to be plenty fine enough for us. So, just so you know. Okay, we're back to our cap rail here. I've let this section here dry for a couple of hours. And what we're looking at now is where we need to start trimming to get this to come out correctly. So, as you can see, we extend past the transom here. Now this is either going to go quite well or horribly wrong. So here's our transom. So I'm going to cut it right there. So it should be, when we lay it down, or eventually get it to lay down, it should protrude past the transom there. That's the idea anyway. And I'm just going to use my wire cutters for this to snip it off. Just like that. I am surprised at how much flexibility this piece of wood has. So we got to start to get it to come down. And I can't move it to the outside. I think it's too much tension. It could break. Well, it might break. No, got too much material there for that. So, got a frog in my throat. Anyway, I'm going to mark it with a file. I think right about there. I'm going to mark it long. And it's going to really taper thin. Unfortunately, you know, this is not polystyrene, so let's see. I think I can start removing material with my knife. Trying not to cut into my transom here. If there was some way I could... I'm kind of convincing myself here what to do here. I need to hold it steady here. I'm not really cutting in the right direction. I'm cutting into the grain. So what's the odds of me cutting myself here? Probably pretty good. We're just going to carefully do this. The other option is to file it, but that's a lot of stress on this rather thin piece. Because we've got, other than chips there, we've got an interesting compound angle going on there. What do you call those things seamstress uses? A thimble? That might not be a bad idea in this case. Let's see if we can make some progress here. Hillbilly knife work. So as you can see, I'm kind of angling it so I can take it off in small pieces there. Try not to slice into my finger. All right, so let's see where we're at. Well, there we go. can almost slip it over the edge. So I'm gonna whittle this down until I can slip it past the edge of our transom there, so that we can get a good look at what we need to do there. The closer we get down to where it's supposed to seat, the better idea we're going to have of what we need to remove. So I've got some of it trimmed off there, and I think we can slip it by. We can. There we go. So what I'm looking at is about where I think the angle needs to be. Now, if we make too big of a mistake, we can always use wood filler. I don't know if you can see my mark. Get it back over top. There we go. Probably the best thing to do here would be to cut it with a blade, a saw blade. I'm going to use my Tamiya bent end blade there. See if I can score this. Very gently. We'll be finishing this off with a, well, if I break it off, it'll fit. I can get it much easier, but we don't want to break it. I am truly amazed at how resilient this little piece of wood is. Slice into it here. Kind of get it notched, maybe. I know this is riveting TV or riveting YouTube. And everybody's wondering, when does Hillbilly lose a finger? All right, we may have to go with files once we get the bulk of it done. Okay, so obviously we're going to have to go with an angle here. Oh, yeah. Be careful. Going to have to go with an angle, and it's got to come in. And like I say, we always have the option of wood filler or some filler. I would rather not do that, but now this is going to have, when we get close, we've got to actually duplicate this angle right here. So, not to make things too difficult. Oof. A sharp hobby knife is your friend at this stage. Okay, so we're getting there. See that? We've almost got our angle correct. What we've got to do is reduce that so that it kind of just slides right into place. And we don't have much to go. As you can see, we just got to get this to slide over to the edge right there of our gunnel. And then we're home free. Easy peasy. Not bad on the angle right there. I'm either getting lucky or I'm getting really lucky. All right, so it's kind of hard to do on camera, but you see how I'm kind of angling in and trying to get this a little bit at a time until we get it to slide over. And like I say, we might have to use a little bit of filler there. I don't know. But I'm not going to concentrate on this anymore. I'm going to work this edge here just to get it to come in where we need it to go. So I'll need to do that off camera though, because it's really, at the angle I'm looking at it, it's really hard to see what I'm doing. So, all right. So when I get that, if anything bad happens, I'll let you know. Okay, so I think that's about it. Now I did cut too short. Cut it too short. But the rest of it fits pretty good. So that's going to move over when we glue it down. And that's a nice fit there. And we got a nice fit in the back. Now we're just going to cut this little excess off here after the glue dries. I'm going to go ahead and let it dry. We'll have to cut that off, and we're going to have to sand it just a little bit. And it might be necessary to touch up our whole yellow ochre there, but we already knew that coming in, that we was probably going to have to do some touch up. We're going to have to touch up here too, because I'm going to have to use some filler. But that's all right. I can live with that. A little bit of filler there, and of course we got to fill up here, and we'll have to fill in between the other rail that goes down the other side. So I'm going to just glue this up, and then I can start work on the other rail. And then when I get around to doing these little excess extensions here, we'll come back to it. Okay, so here we are. We got both of our cap rails on. You can see we still have our little pieces there that we need to sand down. So I am going to kind of snip these off as close as I can get them without damaging the wood up close, because we need to sand that down flush. So that reduces the amount of material that we're going to have to remove. Then it's just a matter of cleaning them up very carefully. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. We want those to... And you know, I understand that I'm probably going to have to touch up this yellow ochre here. But we are going to have to use some filler. That's nice. Almost There we go. So there's that one. So I'm going to go ahead and sand down the other one there. Get it nice and flush there on the end. And there we go. Those look pretty good. Now we are probably going to have to touch up the paint there a little bit. Kind of got into our band there, a reinforcing band, just a little bit. So we'll just put a coat of our yellow ochre over top of that. In the meantime, though, before we start painting, I'm going to use this water-based perfect plastic putty here and start filling some of these gaps that we have. So I'm probably going to make a mess with this, but that's why I'm using the water-soluble stuff, so that it will be easier to clean up. Now I may have to do more than one application. Try to fill that gap there a little bit there. So I don't want to pull that out. The good thing is we can clean this up with water. At least I hope we can. It works good on plastic models. We're about to find out how well it works on wooden models. Okay, so I'm on my second filling here, and I'm just using the perfect plastic putty. And since this was such a large hole to fill, you had to come back and fill it again. However, the seam right there looks really nice. And we do have corners back here to kind of take care of, so I had to refill those. And then I'll come back and clean them up again. Probably the best thing to do to get it square is take a real fine sanding stick, and I'll just shape that, and that'll be done. So there's always plenty to do when it comes to wooden boats. So I decided here for our brackets that goes on our base to kind of felt them, and I chose red. So yeah, it's kind of easy to do. First thing you need to do, though, since we clear coated this with that satin clear, I think it's a good idea to come in, kind of scratch the finish wherever you're going to apply your adhesive, and probably rubber cement would be best for this, but I don't really have any, so I am just going to use CA glue. And it's just the medium CA glue that I always use. It's the Star Bond multi-purpose. Works really good for me. So you're going to need a piece of felt, which I've already cut a piece. And as you can see, it is wider than it needs to be, because we're going to trim it down after we get it attached. So I'm going to start in the middle, put plenty of CA glue down here, because the felt is fibrous and it is going to soak it up. I don't want to yet go all the way to the end. Now, if you want to, you could line up one side. It does have a slight bevel to it. I don't think it really matters. I'm not so sure that I can get it edge on without making a mistake. So I'm just going to kind of pick it in the middle there. Just going to press it into place using just a piece of wood here. And you can clearly see that it's oversized, and that's fine. That is fine. So give it a moment here to kind of grab on. There we go. Now we'll work our corner in. I'm just going to do right up to the corner there, like so. And we're going to press it into place there. And again, we just need to hold on to it there, let it grab. There we are. And now we'll just finish it off right on the top there. I'm using this piece of wood so I don't glue my finger to it. So that's one corner done. So I need to do the other end and get that to adhere. So I'll go ahead and fix that. All right, so I've given it some time to dry, not completely, but it's good enough. So I'm using a pair of scissors here that are, I think they're for cuticles or something like that. As you can see, they're curved. They're really good for modeling. So I can use the wood as a guide. And by putting this flat side, and it helps that I'm right-handed, because the top one needs to be, because of the curve there, we're able to actually come in and run a little bit at a time right on the wood. I think. And if we need to, we can come back and just trim up anything. See? Nice cut. And this is so much easier than me trying to get a perfect little bitty strip and then fighting with it, trying to get it seated and aligned right off the bat. It's easier to use the part as our pattern. And if we're careful, it comes out exactly how we want it to. Yeah, that's going to look good. There we go. Nice. Now while we're working on the base, see we got that nice clear satin. We might as well just go ahead and install these. It's going to need a little bit of wood glue. And I am just going to put it in the slot, up at the top of the slot. And when we press our piece in, it will just push down to the underside. Shouldn't need much. It's a fairly tight fit. I'm hoping by doing it this way, we don't have any... I want to make sure I get my bevel going the right way. Yeah, I got the right one. We shouldn't have any squeeze out around the top. It should all go down below. It does fit. Yeah, it's coming out all over my hands. Kind of squished my felt a little bit there. That's all right. There's a little bit of squeeze out there. A little bit of water. A little bit of a Q-tip here. Just get that cleaned up right there. Dry it off. There we go. So I just need to go ahead and put the other one in. So one more little thing we can do to our stand. Now these are 3/8 inch felt. Kind of thick. I don't know exactly how thick they are, but almost 1/4 inch, I'd say. No? Yeah, maybe. But anyway, we're gonna put these on the bottom so it doesn't scratch our furniture like your shelf or whatever. They just peel right off. Now, if you put them inboard a bit, about like so, they won't be seen, and it kind of makes your display kind of look like it's levitating or hovering. So floating, and it'll give it that little fall, well, the actual shadow. I almost said false shadow. Man, these are sticky. You don't have to be absolutely precise with it, of course, because it's on the bottom. Nobody's going to see it. And so that'll give some relief from the tabletop. And we'll get that little shadow around it there. It ought to look good. Okay, so I've gotten everything cleaned up there. And we are ready to touch up our paint. So I'm going to start off with the yellow ochre here. Cleaning up these little things. Just like so. Probably wouldn't hurt to overlap it a little bit onto the surface where it's going to be green, because we're going to run the green right up to it. Yeah. So we're in good shape there. Now this is going to be tricky, but I think I can do it. Okay, so that's done. I need to touch up back here. Oh, got a little little thingy. Okay. All right, not bad. I'm going to do the same thing up here with the stem. Just a little bit because of the sanding stick. I think we're okay. And then we'll have to touch up our green. So that's next. So I'm just touching up the green here. It'll probably take a couple of coats. I went ahead and put the first coat on there at the bow, and then I've trimmed up around the transom here. Now, one of the things that we also need to do is we need to paint the top edge of the transom trying to get a straight line there. There we go. Kind of hard on that bevel. Everybody holding your breath? I am. It'll probably take 2 coats to do all this. I think I just overlapped a little bit there. Yeah, just a little bit. I'll come in and touch that back up. But what we need to do is we need to transfer this color right on down to the cap rail. I am truly messing that up. A little bit of touch up, it'll be fine. It's all about your angle. If you get your angle right, you don't have that big of a problem. I might just paint the whole side of it right there green. I think that would look best. Look bestest. Okay. That's just the first coat. Now I'm gonna have to come back in with our yellow ochre and touch up some there. I've still got this other side to paint. So I'll get these all painted up and we'll take a look at it. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is the beckets. And the beckets are the ropes that they use to stack the dories and to pull them in and out of the water. So I'm not going to read all this to you. We're just going to kind of do what they're what they're telling us to. Well, I think we're going to kind of do it. And what I mean by that is they want us to use diluted PVA glue. We need to tie a knot in one end. And this one's a little bit frayed, so we're going to go ahead and use this end. Now we're supposed to trim off the excess. There we go. So we got a knot. Like so. I'm not going to put anything on it right yet because I need to fix the other end so that it is threadable through the holes in the hull of our dory. And as you can see, it will fray out really easy. So I'm just going to use our CA glue here. Just like so. Watch me, oops, I didn't mean to drop it. Give it a twist there. So what we're going to do here is we're going to let this CA glue dry. It'll dry fairly quick. And then we'll just trim the end of it off so that we can use that to thread it through the hull of the boat without it getting caught and pulling fibers down and you know, kind of bundling up the strands and stuff, because we don't want it to do that. So let's see if we can actually trim this. Yeah, we can. That should be good enough, as long as it fits through the holes on our dory. Just. I know this, the rope looks huge, don't it? All right, so I'm gonna go with it there. So the whole idea here we want just enough rope to hang down, just like in the picture here. You can see how they've got it quite low on the back side of the dory here. So that's kind of what we're going for there. That's about there. So right about here I need a knot. I'm not going to tie it real tight. I need to see where we're at. That's going to come out about right. There we go. There we are. Okay. Wow. It does not want to keep the knot. Huh. All right, so what am I going to do about that? I guess I have to use a little bit. I don't really want to use CA glue, but I guess I'm going to have to. See, CA glue can change your color. And I don't want it to do that. I may have to use PVA glue here for the knot. So I think, got me a little dab of PVA glue here. We'll put it inside the knot. Kind of pull it to. I need it to grab the fibers of the rope here and keep this knot from slipping back out like it's doing right now. I didn't really want to do that. This is being, all right, I'm just gonna have to pull it out like so. Because it absolutely does not want to cooperate with me. Funny how I could tie the other one, but not this one. So I don't really want to see what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to tie these knots, and then we're supposed to come back with diluted PVA glue there. Mine's about 50-50, and paint the knot with the PVA glue. Once it dries, we will trim the excess fibers off, or so they tell us. However, we can't really get there until we get our knots to stay. And if I use the diluted PVA glue on it now, it's going to wick down the rope and we're going to have the wrong shape. Because the other part is that we're going to weight this rope in a drying position. And we need it to actually take that little dive down the back of the transom here to hang correctly. So all right, so I'm gonna have to glue this knot, and it kind of looks like I need to glue the other knot, so I'm gonna go ahead and do those. All right, so kind of got our knot where we want it. We'll cut off the excess there. And we need to, gonna need our stand here for the next step on this to elevate our dinghy. And I'm going to need something. I'll use that. So the idea here is to weight our rope down. Stretch this out. We need to form our rope so that it hangs down off the stern of our dinghy. Need to change the camera direction here so you can see what I'm doing. so I think you can see better there. So this is our diluted PVA glue that we've got going on here. Just need to make sure it's mixed up. The PVA glue can settle in the water. And we kind of need it to absorb into the rope, just like that. So we're going to wet our rope. And that should just wick through. Kind of let that soak in. And the paintbrush is providing the weight that we need to get that natural gravity pull down on our rope there. Let's see. Whoops. I messed everything up there. There we go. I'm going to save that for later. So we just need to make sure that we've got a nice natural hanging rope there. All right, we're gonna let that go ahead and dry. Then I'm gonna go ahead and tie and secure me a knot in the other end, because we need to put one of these beckets on the bow. The only difference is that this the bow becket is going to be inside the boat, so the knots will be on the outside. Now you could do it either way. I'm going to do mine like they have it in the illustrations. So maybe it'll look like it's supposed to. We'll have to see. Okay, so a quick note when it comes to the rope. I've got this weighted and all that. It's taken me quite a few passes with the or coats with our diluted PVA glue. And if you can see here, up here in our bow, I opted to put the knots on the outside, where the knots on the stern or transom is on the inside. That way the rope wouldn't be, outside the boat, but inside the boat. And I've got that with the diluted PVA glue kind of drying, and you can see my little jig I got going on here to kind of add weight to it there to keep it pulled down. I will say though that I'm not real thrilled over this rope. I think it's a bit out of scale, but we're going to go with it. We can always change it out later, but I just wanted you guys to see how I've managed to kind of conquer the bow becket there. And like I say, that rope isn't, I think it's too large, but we're going to go with it for this build. We can always change it out whenever. All right, so with everything dry, pretty much where we want it, we need to cut these off. They say trim it right up next to the knot, so I'm going to try to do that. It's harder than it looks. I'm going to need something else to do that with. I'm gonna use these wire cutters, I guess. Yep. That worked much better. There we go. Yeah, so we're going to cut all these off. I need to cut this one off too. And of course that one. Not too happy about those knots on the front, but well, we'll kind of see how that works out. I may tape and glue them down flat like so. Probably just a little bit of PVA glue would handle that for us. All right, so I'll get all this cut off and taken care of. All right, with our beckets already taken care of, we need to start looking at our thole pins here. So these are the pins that go into our cap rail, like so, and they don't go in very deep. Just checking that there's no big glob of glue or something in there that's going to keep us from actually getting it down in there. So my thole pins are a little bit smaller, probably than they should be. So I'm just going to check each one of the holes to make sure that we don't have any real big obstructions there. All right, so this is going to be tedious. Don't want to lose any of them. So we've got some wood glue. I don't know. I think, well, let's just kind of try it here. See what we got going on. I'm going to just start right about here, I guess. We'll have to true these. And clean up around them there a little bit. Now once they completely dry, we will come back and, all right, it don't want to behave for me. We'll come back and sand the tops of them down so that they're all in alignment with one another. And we have that nice look going down the top rail there. So yeah, let me get all these in and get them lined up, and we'll have to let these dry. Okay, so all of our thole pins are dry now, and I've taken a block of wood here and drilled a hole in it. Now that's a 1.2 millimeter hole, and the block is about 5.5 Yeah, it's about 5.5 millimeters tall. So the ideal here is that we can take and place this block right over top of our thole pins, let it rest right on top of our cap rail, and then we can come in with a sanding stick and we can use that to sand the top of our thole pins off. And once we sand them down nice and flush, they should all be the same height once we're done here. So the ideal behind using this little block of wood with the hole in it is it keeps us from putting too much torsional force on those delicate tholes and breaking them off, because we don't want to do that. And so I'm just going to go right down the line here. Sanding each and every one of these until we get them all the same height. And then we can come back and just kind of clean up the tops of them there a little bit. Make them all nice and dressed, and they'll all be the same height, and we'll be able to move on to the next step. So here we are, coming towards the end of the build. I'm just using the yellow wood glue here. Little dab will do you, I think, for installing our throats. Just make sure you got the right one. And if we've done a good job of figuring out all of our proper sizing and everything, then we shouldn't have that big of a deal when it comes time to install these, which happens to be now. So I'm using the yellow glue because it is get my hand out of the way here. Because it is extremely strong. And we shouldn't have to worry about anything popping loose here. Now I will tell you that when I finished sanding the thole pins down, I did clean up the ends of them, of course, because you will get those little fuzzies. Always something that happens with wood when you sand it. And here we have, kind of missed that one, didn't I? So we're going to clean that up real quick here. Don't want that to remain. There we go. Just like that. So on the real boats, the real dories, we would, the throats or the seats here are not permanently attached. That way they can be removed and the dories can be stacked one on top of another. I guess for storage or maybe even transport. I don't know where you would transport your dory too, but that's what I read in the manual. So that's kind of, I will take that to be fact. Smarter people than me made this kit. And it is an enjoyable kit, other than other than the mistakes that we've made along the way, but you can kind of expect that to happen, you know, especially if you're new to wooden boat building. You don't really understand everything that's actually going to happen and go on. And that's why we're building this one, is so that we can learn that. Now, of course, our dory wouldn't be complete without its oars. I don't really know where I want them. As you can imagine, they would just be laid into the dory. Maybe something like that, I don't know. You could line them all up and make it look natural. I'm not gonna, you can glue these down, but I don't think I'm gonna glue mine down. I think I'm just gonna leave them to where we can change them or pick them up or do whatever we want to with them. And these are the leather wear areas there that's supposed to sit right about there when you're rowing your dory. All in all, I think it looks pretty good. Maybe we'll just put that one in. Well, that looks unorganized, doesn't it? We won't say that we're terribly organized, but all right. All right, so that finishes up our dory, our Lowell Grand Banks dory here. Real quick, this type of kit came with the little toolkit, and it had the clamps and the paint and the paint brushes and the hobby knife and tweezers and sandpaper and stuff, along with the glue. I will say that probably, as you've seen in the build, I didn't stay with just what came in the kit. I found that I needed more clamps than the 6 that came in the kit. So additional clamps will help you with the build, along with the rubber bands and maybe a variety of pack of different types or shapes of wood that we use to brace and get everything aligned for us when we did the planking. So that would be a good addition. And then I used the emery boards for sanding. I found those very helpful versus just using the sandpaper, although you could build this with just the sandpaper. And of course a little pack of jeweler's files would be helpful too in building this kit. Now, when it comes to mistakes, we did make our fair share of those, most of which was self-inflicted. I didn't really clean up all the squeeze out on the interior of our dory, which I really regret not spending all the time that I should have to clean that up. But other than that, I think it came out fairly well. The one thing I will say, as far as everything that came in the kit, is the rope. I believe that the rope that we use for the beckets is a bit too large for the scale, but I went ahead and used it anyway. Of course, you can always change that. That's not that big of a deal. Now the paint is excellent. Model Shipways has done a really good job with their formulation of that paint. So I'm really happy with how the paint has come out. And the only real addition that we added to the kit, I guess, would be the stain that we used for our stand and the felt. That little red felt that we used, add a little extra touch there. So that worked out pretty good there. So those are the two things that we actually added that was not supplied in this kit. So we did learn a lot of things in building this kit, and it was really enjoyable. I really liked doing it. So this is the first in our 3-boat series here of the Model Shipways Shipwright of Old combo kit. Our next project's going to be the Norwegian sailing pram, so that should be fun. We're going to use all the skills that we learned in building the Dory to build it, and we're going to learn a few more. And that boat also has some rigging and a sail, so that ought to be a lot of fun. So look for that. That'll be our next build. So special thanks to all my subscribers. It's because of you guys I keep building these kits, and I hope that you enjoyed this one. And if you're not a subscriber, I hope today I earned your subscription. And yeah, so you guys go ahead, look for the next build, and we're going to learn some more about boat building. So you guys stay safe.